The letter arrived on Kyung-Soo Han's desk at 2 in the morning, crumpled and stained with something that might have been tears. His lieutenant placed it carefully among the usual reports: debt collections, shipment manifests, surveillance photographs, as if a child's scrawled handwriting belonged there. "Boss, one of the guys found this at the restaurant. It was shoved under the door with the mail slot." Kyung-Soo's dark eyes, cold as Chicago's December wind, barely glanced at the red construction paper. "Why are you wasting my time with trash?" "Because it's addressed to Santa Claus. Care of this address. And sir," the lieutenant hesitated, "you should read what she's asking for." Against his better judgment, Kyung-Soo unfolded the letter. A child's careful printing filled the page, some letters backward, others smudged. "Dear Santa, my name is Makina, and I am 7. I don't want toys this year. Mommy works all the time and she cries when she thinks I'm asleep. We don't have food sometimes. Please send me a daddy. A nice one who won't leave. Love, Makina Jones." At the bottom, a small hand had drawn 2 stick figures, one tall, one tiny, holding hands under a crooked star. Something sharp and unfamiliar twisted in Kyung-Soo's chest. He crushed the feeling immediately, the way he'd been trained since childhood. Emotion was weakness. Weakness was death. But his hand wouldn't release the letter. The diner on South Ashland Avenue had seen better decades. Cracked vinyl booths, flickering fluorescent lights, and the perpetual smell of burnt coffee and grease. It was the kind of place where desperate people ate cheap meals and asked no questions, which made it perfect for certain types of business meetings. Kyung-Soo sat in the corner booth, his broad shoulders filling the space, black coat still dusted with snow. His lieutenant, Min-jae, sat across from him, wisely silent. The dragon tattoo on Kyung-Soo's neck, intricate scales and fierce eyes, was partially visible above his collar, a reminder of the power he wielded in Chicago's underworld. He'd told himself he came here for the monthly collection from the owner, who ran an illegal gambling operation in the basement. He'd told himself the letter meant nothing. He was lying to himself, and he knew it. "Order, honey?" The voice pulled his attention. The waitress stood beside the table, order pad in hand, exhaustion carved into every line of her face. She was young, mid-20s, with rich brown skin and long box braids pulled into a ponytail. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but those eyes were striking. Deep brown, intelligent, watching everything. She wore the diner's stained uniform, too big in the shoulders, and her name tag read, "Jasmine." "Coffee, black," Kyung-Soo said, his slight Korean accent clipping the words. "Same," Min-jae added. Jasmine nodded and turned away, movements efficient despite obvious fatigue. Kyung-Soo found himself watching the way she moved between tables, the tired grace of someone who'd been on her feet too long. She delivered food, refilled cups, smiled at customers who barely acknowledged her existence. "Boss," Min-jae murmured, "the owner's ready to see you." But Kyung-Soo's attention had shifted to the small figure sitting alone in a booth near the kitchen, a little girl with rich brown skin and hair pulled into 2 puffs, coloring carefully on a paper placemat. She wore a thin jacket despite the cold, and the hot chocolate in front of her looked watered down, the free kind waitresses gave to poor kids. The girl looked up as Jasmine passed, and her whole face transformed with love and worry. "Mummy, are you okay? Your feet hurt." "I'm fine, baby. Keep coloring, okay? Mummy's working." Kyung-Soo's hand moved to his coat pocket, where the letter still rested. His jaw clenched. Makina Jones. The realization hit him with unexpected force. The letter writer was here, right here, in this miserable diner, while her mother worked herself to exhaustion. He watched Jasmine return to their table with coffee, professional smile firmly in place. Up close, he could see more. The proud tilt of her chin despite circumstances, the way her hands trembled slightly from fatigue, the fading bruise on her wrist that her sleeve didn't quite cover. "Anything else?" she asked. "That your daughter?" The question left Kyung-Soo's mouth before he could stop it. Jasmine's expression shuttered immediately, protective instinct flaring. "Yes. Is there a problem?" "No." He studied her face, seeing the fierce love there, the desperate pride. "She's well behaved. Makina's a good girl." Jasmine's voice softened, speaking her daughter's name, then hardened again. "Will that be all?" She walked away before he could respond, returning to the endless cycle of orders and tables. But Kyung-Soo noticed things now, the way she slipped her daughter crackers from her apron pocket, the way Makina tried to hide her hunger, the way they looked at each other, with a love that transcended their circumstances. Min-jae cleared his throat. "Boss, handle the collection yourself," Kyung-Soo said, not looking away from the mother and daughter. "I'm staying." Sir, you heard me. For the next hour, Kyung-soo sat in that booth, nursing cold coffee, watching. He watched Jasmine navigate aggressive customers and inadequate tips with dignity. He watched Makina do homework with a pencil worn down to a nub. He watched the owner yell at Jasmine for taking a 30-second break, watched her jaw tighten, but her voice remain steady. He watched, and something cold inside him began to thaw in a way that felt dangerous. At 11 p.m., Jasmine's shift finally ended. She collected Makina, wrapped the girl's thin jacket tighter, and headed for the door. The temperature outside had dropped below freezing, and neither of them had coats adequate for Chicago winter. Kyung-soo made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. He stood, his imposing frame drawing immediate attention, and intercepted them at the door. Jasmine froze, instinctively pulling Makina behind her. Her eyes met his, and he saw fear there, not of him specifically, but of powerful men in general. She'd learned to be afraid. "Excuse me," she said carefully. "We're leaving." "I know." Kyung-soo reached into his coat. Jasmine tensed, ready to run or fight, but he pulled out an envelope, thick with cash, and held it toward her. "Your tip. You forgot it at the table." She stared at the envelope, then at him. "I didn't serve you food. Just coffee. Best coffee I've had." His expression didn't change. "Take it. I don't accept charity." Pride burned in her voice, even as he could see her calculating how much food that money would buy, how many bills it would pay. Kyung-soo respected that pride even as he intended to crush it, for her own good. "It's not charity. You earned it." He stepped closer, lowering his voice so Makina wouldn't hear clearly. "I know you're struggling. I can help." "I don't need help from—" She stopped herself, eyes dropping to the dragon tattoo on his neck, recognition dawning. Everyone in Chicago's underworld knew that mark. "From men like you. Men like me keep this city running." His voice was cold. "And men like me can make your life considerably easier. Or harder." It was a threat wrapped in an offer, and they both knew it. Jasmine's hand tightened on Makina's shoulder. "What do you want?" "Have coffee with me tomorrow. 1 conversation. After that you can walk away if you choose. And if I don't," his eyes held hers, "then you walk away now. But that envelope walks with you either way. For the girl." He'd found her weakness, her pressure point. For herself, Jasmine would refuse. For Makina, she'd do anything. Her hand slowly reached for the envelope, fingers brushing his. The contact lasted a second, but he felt it like electricity. "Tomorrow, 3 p.m., the cafe on Clark Street." She nodded once, then pushed past him into the freezing night. Makina clutched close. Kyung-soo watched them disappear into the snow, 2 small figures against the hostile winter. The letter crinkled in his pocket. "Please send me a daddy. A nice one who won't leave." He wasn't nice, he wasn't even good. But as he stood in that doorway, watching their footprints fade under fresh snow, Kyung-soo Han made a promise to a child he'd never met. He wouldn't leave. The cafe on Clark Street was neutral territory. Clean, warm, the kind of place where professionals met for legitimate business. Kyung-soo arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a table near the back with a clear view of all exits. Habit. He'd dressed carefully. Black suit, white shirt open at the collar, the dragon tattoo deliberately visible. Let her see exactly who he was. No illusions. Jasmine arrived exactly at 3, Makina in tow. She'd clearly tried. Clothes clean if worn, braids neat, chin high. The pride again, that fierce dignity in the face of poverty. It stirred something in him, unwanted and insistent. "Ms. Jones," he greeted standing. "Mr. Han." She'd learned his name, done her research. Smart woman. "I couldn't find a sitter. She's welcome." Kyung-soo's eyes dropped to Makina, who stared up at him with wide, curious eyes. "Hello, Makina." The girl's face lit up with surprise that he knew her name. "Hi, you're really tall." "Makina manners," Jasmine warned softly. "It's fine." The corner of Kyung-soo's mouth almost twitched. Almost. "I am tall. Would you like hot chocolate?" "Can I, Mommy?" Jasmine hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with accepting anything more from him, but Makina's hopeful expression won. "Yes, baby." Kyung-soo signaled the server, ordered hot chocolate for Makina and coffee for Jasmine without asking. The server recognized him. Everyone in this neighborhood knew who he was, and the order arrived within minutes, along with a plate of cookies he hadn't requested. Perks of owning half the block. Makina's eyes went wide at the cookies. She looked to her mother for permission. "1," Jasmine said quietly. The girl took the smallest one, nibbling it slowly to make it last. Kyung-soo watched, that unfamiliar ache returning to his chest. He'd seen hunger before, had lived it himself as a child in Korea before his family escaped to America, before he built his empire. He recognized it in Makina's careful bites, her savoring of something simple. "You wanted to talk," Jasmine said, pulling his attention back, her hands wrapped around the coffee cup, absorbing warmth. "So talk. Direct." He appreciated that. "I have a job offer." Her eyebrows rose. "I'm a waitress, Mr. Han. I don't think I'm qualified for whatever you... I need someone to manage my household." He'd planned this carefully. "I have a property in Gold Coast, large. I'm rarely there, but when I am, I need meals prepared, space maintained, things organized. Regular hours, good pay, health insurance. Health insurance. He saw her flinch at that, saw the hunger for stability. "Why me? You're hardworking. Honest. You need the job." He paused. "And I trust you. You don't know me. I know enough." He'd had her investigated last night, but he didn't mention that. Single mother, father absent, medical bills from Makina's asthma, eviction notices piling up. Jasmine Jones was drowning, and she was too proud to scream for help. "I know you work 2 jobs and still can't pay rent. I know your daughter has medical needs. I know you're out of options." Her jaw clenched. "You investigated me." "Yes." At least he didn't lie. Jasmine looked away, blinking hard. He could see her pride warring with reality, could see the moment reality won. "What's the catch?" "No catch. You work. I pay you. Simple." Nothing simple with men like you. But her voice lacked conviction. She was already imagining it. Steady income, insurance for Makina, heat in winter, food always available. 1-month trial, Kyung-soo offered. "If you don't like it, you walk away. I'll give you a reference." "A reference from a..." She stopped, glancing at Makina, who was absorbed in her hot chocolate. "From you wouldn't help me. A reference from the owner of Han Enterprises would help significantly." He used his legal business name deliberately. "And that's who I am on paper." Jasmine studied him for a long moment. He let her look, let her see the ruthlessness in his face, the danger in his eyes. Better she knew now. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why help us?" "Because your daughter wrote a letter to Santa asking for a father. Because I haven't felt anything in 10 years until I saw that letter. Because something about you makes me want to be someone different." "Because I can," he said instead. It wasn't the truth, but it wasn't entirely a lie either. Jasmine looked at Makina, then back at him. He could see her making the calculation every mother in her position would make. Risk versus reward, danger versus opportunity. "If you touch my daughter..." "I won't." His voice was ice. "I don't hurt children, ever." Something in his tone convinced her. Or maybe she was just desperate enough to believe. "Okay," she whispered. 1-month trial. You start Monday." "That soon?" "I'm not a patient man, Ms. Jones." "Jasmine," she corrected. "If I'm working for you, it's Jasmine." Jasmine. Her name felt strange on his tongue, intimate. "Call me Kyung-soo. I'll call you Mr. Han." He almost smiled. Almost. Makina chose that moment to look up from her hot chocolate, mustache of foam on her upper lip. "Mommy, can I have another cookie?" "No, baby, you've had enough." "She can have them all," Kyung-soo interrupted. To the server. "Box up the cookies and add a selection of sandwiches." "Mr. Han, that's not..." "It's food, Jasmine, not charity." His eyes held hers. "Let me do this." She wanted to refuse. He could see it in every line of her body. But Makina was watching with hopeful eyes, and Jasmine loved her daughter more than she hated accepting help. "Thank you," she said finally, the words clearly difficult. "You'll thank me by showing up Monday, 8 a.m. I'll text you the address." He stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Jasmine gathered Makina, accepted the boxed food with visible reluctance. As they reached the door, Makina turned back. "Bye, Mr. Kyung-soo, thank you for the cookies." Her smile was pure sunshine, innocent and bright. It hit Kyung-soo like a physical blow. "Goodbye, Makina." When they left, he sat back down, staring at his untouched coffee. Min-jae emerged from a nearby table where he'd been watching. "Boss, what are you doing?" "I don't know," Kyung-soo admitted quietly. For a man who always had a plan, who controlled every variable, those 3 words were terrifying. That night, alone in his penthouse, Kyung-soo took out the letter again, unfolded it carefully, studying the childish handwriting, the backward letters, the stick figures holding hands. "Please send me a daddy. A nice one who won't leave." He wasn't nice. He'd killed men, ruined lives, built an empire on violence and fear. His hands were stained with blood that would never wash clean. But maybe, just maybe, those same hands could hold something precious, without destroying it. He placed the letter in his desk drawer beneath his gun and false passports. Monday couldn't come fast enough. Monday morning arrived with fresh snow and bitter wind. Kyung-soo's penthouse in Gold Coast was a monument to wealth and isolation. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, minimalist furniture in blacks and greys, art worth more than most people's homes. It was impressive and utterly soulless, like the man who lived there. He'd dismissed his previous housekeeper Friday, paid her 6 months severance and told no one why. Min-jae thought he was losing his mind. Maybe he was. At exactly 8 a.m. the doorman called up. "Mr. Han, Miss Jones and her daughter are here. Send them up." Kyung-soo straightened his tie, white shirt, 4 buttons undone despite the cold because old habits died hard, and waited. He realized his heart was beating faster. Ridiculous. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. Jasmine stepped out, Makina's hand tight in hers, both of them freezing in shock at the opulence surrounding them. "Holy—" Jasmine caught herself, glancing at Makina. "This is where you live?" "Yes." Kyung-soo studied them. Jasmine wore her best clothes, which weren't much. Makina's coat was still too thin. He made a mental note. "Come in." They ventured further, Makina's eyes wide with wonder. "Mommy, it's like a castle." "It's a home," Kyung-soo said. "Now it's your home too." During work hours, he showed Jasmine the kitchen, restaurant-grade appliances she clearly knew how to use, the cleaning supplies, the schedule he'd prepared. Professional, businesslike, as if this were normal. "McKenna can stay in the media room while you work," he added. "There are books, movies, games. She'll be safe and warm." Jasmine's eyes glistened. Safe and warm. Things that had been luxuries. "Mr. Han—" "House rules," he interrupted. "You have full access to the kitchen. Eat whatever you want. Feed Makina whatever she needs. No restrictions. That's not— Rule 2, if she's sick, you stay home. Paid. Her health comes first." Jasmine's throat worked. "Why are you doing this?" "Rule 3, he continued, ignoring the question. "You see nothing, hear nothing about my business. Men come here sometimes, meetings, you stay away, keep Makina away. Understand?" Reality crashed back. Right, he was a criminal. This was dangerous. "I understand," she whispered. "Good. I'll be gone most of the day. Make yourself comfortable." He left before she could protest further, taking Min-jae and heading to his real office, the one where blood money was counted and territories negotiated. But all day, his mind wandered back to the penthouse, to Jasmine exploring the kitchen, Makina curled up in the media room. He'd given Min-jae strict instructions. Security watches them, but discreetly. No one approaches them. No one frightens them. When he returned at 7 p.m., the penthouse had transformed. It smelled like food. Real food, home cooking, something with spices and warmth. Music played softly from the kitchen, and he could hear laughter. Kyung-soo stopped in the entryway, listening. When was the last time this place had heard laughter? He found them in the kitchen, Jasmine at the stove, Makina on a stool beside her, both singing along to an old R&B song. Jasmine's braids swung as she moved, grace in her tired body. Makina attempted to dance, giggling. They hadn't noticed him yet. He watched from the doorway, something warm and unfamiliar spreading through his chest. This was what the penthouse had been missing. Life. "You cook and provide entertainment?" he said finally. Both jumped. Jasmine spun, spatula raised like a weapon, then lowered it sheepishly. "Mr. Han, I didn't hear you come in." "Clearly." He moved closer, drawn by the warmth. "What is that smell?" "Oh, I hope it's okay, I made dinner. You said to use the kitchen, and I thought—" Nervousness crept into her voice. "What did you make?" "Jerk chicken, rice and peas, plantains." She bit her lip. "I didn't know what you liked, so I made what I know. I can make something else if— It smells incredible." And it did. His own private chef had never made food that smelled like home. "I haven't had a real meal in months." "Mr. Kyung-soo," Makina bounded over, all energy despite the hour. "Mommy let me help. I mixed the rice." "Did you?" He looked down at her, this tiny person with her mother's eyes and brilliant smile. "Then it must be perfect. Are you hungry? Mommy made a lot." He was always hungry. Not for food, but for something he couldn't name. But looking at them, Jasmine watching him warily, Makina beaming up at him, Kyung-soo felt that hunger shift, focus, become specific. "I am hungry," he admitted. Jasmine hesitated, then made a decision. "Sit. I'll make you a plate." It felt strange sitting at his own table, a table he'd never used, while Jasmine served him food she'd cooked in his kitchen. McKenna insisted on sitting beside him, chattering about her day in the media room, the movies she'd watched, the books she'd discovered. Kyung-soo listened, occasionally responding, mostly just absorbing her innocent joy. When Jasmine placed the plate in front of him, their fingers brushed again. That same electric shock. Her eyes met his, startled. She felt it too. He took a bite. The flavors exploded, spicy, perfect, made with care and skill. "This is excellent." "Really?" Jasmine smiled, genuinely pleased. The expression transformed her face, made her even more beautiful. "I used to cook with my grandmother. She was from Jamaica, taught me everything. She taught you well." They ate together, an odd makeshift family around that table. Kyung-soo found himself talking about Korea, about his mother's cooking, about flavors he hadn't tasted in years. Jasmine listened, asked questions, shared stories of her own. McKenna fell asleep at the table, exhausted from her exciting day. Jasmine moved to wake her, but Kyung-soo was faster. "I'll carry her," he said. "You don't have to—" But he was already lifting the child carefully, as if she were made of glass. McKenna's head nestled against his shoulder, her breath warm against his neck. She weighed nothing, this little girl who'd written to Santa, asking for a father. Something fierce and protective surged through him. Mine to protect, his instinct screamed. Mine to keep safe. "The guest room," he directed Jasmine. "This way." He laid McKenna on the bed, pulling the covers over her thin frame. Jasmine stood in the doorway, watching with an expression he couldn't read. "She trusts you already," Jasmine said softly. "She doesn't trust men, usually." "Why not?" "Her father—" Jasmine's jaw tightened. "He wasn't kind." Before he left. Rage flashed through Kyung-soo, hot and immediate. Someone had hurt this child, hurt this woman. "Where is he now?" "I don't know. Don't care. Good riddance." He understood that sentiment. He dealt with bad men every day. But something about knowing McKenna had been hurt, that Jasmine had been hurt. "I'm not him," Kyung-soo said quietly. "I'm not a good man, Jasmine. But I don't hurt children. And I don't hurt women. You hurt people, though. Not an accusation. A statement. Yes, people who deserve it." She studied him in the dim light of the guest room, this dangerous man standing over her sleeping daughter with unexpected gentleness. "I don't understand you," she admitted. "Good. That makes two of us." The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither wanted to name. Finally, Jasmine broke eye contact. "We should go. It's late." "Stay." The word came out rougher than intended. "The guest room is ready. It's dangerous out there this late, and you have an early start tomorrow." "Mr. Han," Kyung-soo, he corrected. "And it's practical. You're exhausted. She's already asleep. Stay." Jasmine wavered. Pride versus practicality. Suspicion versus hope. "Just tonight," she conceded. "Tomorrow we go back to our apartment." Of course. They both knew he was lying. And somewhere deep down, Jasmine knew it too. As she tucked McKenna in properly, Kyung-soo stood in the doorway, watching. This penthouse had never held anything innocent, anything pure. Now it held a sleeping child and her devoted mother. Now it held hope. When he finally retreated to his own room, Kyung-soo lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Down the hall, separated by walls and years of carefully constructed isolation, Jasmine and McKenna slept safe and warm. For the first time in a decade, Kyung-soo Han felt something besides cold calculation. He felt responsible. He felt protective. He felt dangerously close to feeling something more. 2 weeks passed in a rhythm that felt increasingly natural and increasingly dangerous. Jasmine arrived each morning at 8, though now she had keys, and transformed the penthouse into something livable. Food appeared regularly. Music filled the silence. McKenna's laughter echoed through rooms that had known only cold quiet. Kyung-soo found himself coming home earlier, found excuses to work from the penthouse, found reasons to share meals with them. It was the third Friday when everything shifted. He arrived home at 6 to find Jasmine on her hands and knees, scrubbing the floor with vicious intensity. No music played, no cooking smells filled the air, and McKenna was nowhere visible. "Where's McKenna?" he demanded, alarm spiking. Jasmine jumped, spinning to face him. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her cheeks wet with tears she'd been hiding. "Media room. Sleeping." "What happened?" "Nothing. I'm fine." But her voice cracked on the lie. Kyung-soo crossed the distance between them, crouching beside her. Up close, he could see she was trembling, could see the fear and fury in her eyes. His hand moved before he could think, tilting her chin up to force eye contact. "What happened?" The gentle touch, coupled with the commanding tone, broke something in her. The words spilled out in a rush. The landlord came by my apartment today. Said I'm 3 months behind on rent, which is a lie. I'm 2 months behind. Said I have 1 week to come up with everything or he's evicting us. But that's not even the worst part. Her breath hitched. He said there are other ways I could pay. He touched my... She couldn't finish, shame and rage coloring her face. The world went very quiet, very still. Kyung-soo's hand dropped from her chin, but his eyes never left hers. When he spoke, his voice was soft, deadly soft. His name. Mr. Han, it's fine, I'll figure something. His name. Jasmine recognized the danger in his tone, recognized that she'd just unleashed something terrible. Marcus Delaney. He owns half the buildings in Southside. Not for long. Kyung-soo stood, pulling out his phone. Min-jae. Boss. I need everything on Marcus Delaney, property owner, Southside. Everything. Where he lives, where he works, who he loves, what he fears. I want it in an hour. Consider it done. He ended the call and looked down at Jasmine, who was staring at him with wide eyes. You don't have to... He touched you. 3 words. Flat and final. He threatened you. He made you cry. Kyung-soo's jaw clenched, the dragon tattoo seeming to writhe with his anger. No one does that, not to you, not anymore. You'll hurt him. Not a question. Yes. I don't want you to... She stopped, because that was a lie. She did want him to. Wanted someone to protect her for once, to fight for her, to make the bad men go away. The realization shamed her. I don't want you to kill anyone because of me. I won't kill him. Kyung-soo's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Death is too easy. I'll destroy him properly, financially, socially, completely. By next week, Marcus Delaney will wish he'd never heard your name. Why? The question burst out of her. Why do you care? I'm just your housekeeper. This isn't your problem. You stopped being just my housekeeper the moment you walked through that door. He stepped closer, crowding into her space, making her tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. You and McKenna, you're under my protection now. That means something in my world. It means everything. I'm not yours to protect, aren't you? His voice dropped lower, intimate. You sleep under my roof. You eat my food. You've made this place into a home. McKenna hugs me goodnight before she sleeps. You think I don't notice. You think I don't feel it. Feel what? That you're mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it sent heat coursing through her body. Both of you. Mine to protect, mine to provide for, mine to... He stopped himself, jaw clenching. Yours to what? Jasmine whispered, trapped between him and the wall, trapped by the intensity in his eyes. Mine to want, he admitted roughly. I want you, Jasmine. I've wanted you since that first night at the diner, and it's getting harder to pretend I don't. Her breath caught. Kyung-soo. Tell me you don't feel it. Tell me when our hands touch you don't feel electricity. Tell me you don't watch me when you think I'm not looking. Tell me you don't imagine... He stopped, breathing hard. Tell me I'm alone in this. She should say yes. Should maintain the professional distance. Should protect herself and Makina from this dangerous man and his dangerous world. Should run. But Jasmine had been running her whole life, and she was so tired of being alone. You're not alone, she breathed. The confession hung between them, changing everything. Kyung-soo's hand came up, hovering near her face, asking permission. When she didn't pull away, his fingers traced her jaw, her cheek, gentle despite their capacity for violence. I'm not a good man, he said quietly. I can't offer you normal, I can't promise safety from my world, but I can promise this. No one will hurt you again. No one will threaten Makina. You'll never go hungry, never be cold, never cry alone. I'll protect you with everything I have. That's not love, she whispered. That's possession. With me, they're the same thing. His thumb brushed her lower lip, and her breath hitched. I'm Korean. We love possessively, completely. When we claim someone, it's forever. So I'm asking you, Jasmine, do you want to be claimed? Because once you say yes, there's no going back. You're mine, and I don't share. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt safe for the first time in years. And Makena. Makena is already mine. His voice softened, speaking the child's name. She asked Santa for a daddy. I'm not nice, and I'm far from perfect, but I'm here, and I'm not leaving. Not her, not you, never. Tears spilled down Jasmine's cheeks, not from fear or sadness, but from overwhelming relief. Someone wanted them. Someone chose them. Someone would stay. Okay, she whispered. Okay, yes. Kyung-soo's control, that iron discipline that had kept him alive in a brutal world, finally shattered. He kissed her. Not gentle, not tentative, but consuming, claiming. His hand slid into her braids, tilting her head back, and Jasmine melted into him with a soft sound of surrender. She tasted like hope, like home, like everything he'd never known he needed. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jasmine's eyes were glazed, her lips swollen. Kyung-soo rested his forehead against hers, struggling to regain control. "Mommy!" They sprang apart like guilty teenagers. Makina stood in the media room doorway, rubbing her eyes, looking small and confused. "Baby, you're awake." Jasmine immediately went to her, smoothing her hair. "Did you have a good nap?" "Uh-huh. I'm hungry." Makina's eyes found Kyung-soo and she smiled. "Hi, Mr. Kyung-soo, are you staying for dinner?" "Yes," he said, his voice still rough. "I'm staying." His eyes met Jasmine's over Makina's head, and the promise was clear. He was staying for much more than dinner. That night, after Makina was asleep and Jasmine had agreed to stay over again, Kyung-soo made a series of phone calls. By morning, Marcus Delaney would discover that every bank had mysteriously called his loans. Every property he owned would face sudden code violations. Every connection he'd cultivated would turn their backs. By next week, he'd be ruined. And Kyung-soo felt no guilt whatsoever. 3 days before Christmas, Chicago was buried under fresh snow. The penthouse glowed with decorations Jasmine and Makina had insisted on. A tree, lights, stockings hung with care. Kyung-soo had allowed it all, even helped string lights, while Makina directed him with the authority of a tiny general. His home had never looked like this. His life had never felt like this. Marcus Delaney was bankrupted and fleeing the state. Jasmine's apartment lease had been mysteriously transferred to Kyung-soo's name, rent paid in full for 5 years. She'd protested, of course, but he'd simply stated facts. "You're mine now, my responsibility. My woman doesn't pay rent." My woman. The words had made her blush and argue, but she hadn't denied them. Now Christmas Eve morning, Kyung-soo woke to the smell of cinnamon and the sound of laughter. He found them in the kitchen, Jasmine making pancakes, Makina covered in flour, both giggling over some private joke. This was what he'd been missing his entire life. "Morning," Jasmine said, smiling at him in a way that made his chest tight. "We're making breakfast." "I can see that." He moved behind her, unable to resist, his hand settling on her hip. She leaned back into him slightly, natural as breathing. "Need help? You can keep Makina from eating all the chocolate chips." Makina giggled, mouth suspiciously full. "I'm quality testing." "Quality testing?" Kyung-soo raised an eyebrow. "That's a good excuse. I'll use that." "See, Mommy, Mr. Kyung-soo agrees with me." They ate breakfast together, a family in everything but name. Afterward, while Jasmine showered, Makina pulled Kyung-soo aside, her expression serious. "Mr. Kyung-soo, can I ask you something?" "Always." She bit her lip, suddenly shy. "Are you going to be my daddy?" The question hit him like a physical blow. He crouched down to her level, meeting those earnest eyes. "Would you want that?" "Yes. You're really nice. And you make Mommy smile. And you let me eat chocolate chips. And you give the best hugs." She paused. "And I asked Santa for a daddy. Maybe he sent you?" Kyung-soo's throat closed. He thought of the letter, still in his desk drawer, the one that had started everything. Maybe Santa had sent him. Or maybe this little girl had saved him without even knowing it. "Makina," he said softly, "I would be honored to be your daddy, if your mommy says yes." "She will, she loves you, I can tell." "How can you tell?" "She looks at you the way Princess Tiana looks at Prince Naveen. In the movie, all soft and happy, out of the mouths of babes." Kyung-soo smiled, a real smile, the kind he'd forgotten he could make. "Then I guess I should ask her properly." "With a ring. Mommy likes sparkly things." "I'll remember that." That evening, after Makina was asleep, Kyung-soo found Jasmine on the balcony, watching the snow fall over Lake Michigan. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders, pulling her back against his chest. "You'll freeze out here," he murmured. "It's beautiful, though. I never had a view like this before. Get used to it. This is your home now." She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "Kyung-soo, we need to talk about this, about us. This is happening so fast." "Too fast? Maybe? I don't know." She bit her lip. "I have a daughter. I can't just jump into something without thinking." "I'm not asking you to jump." He cupped her face in his hands. "I'm asking you to stay, permanently, you and Makina. Move in, not as my housekeeper, as my family." Your family. I want to wake up to your face every morning. I want to come home to Makana's laughter. I want to teach her Korean and take her to museums and help with homework. I want to watch you cook and argue with you about music and kiss you whenever I want without worrying about timing. He paused. I want to marry you, Jasmine. Her breath caught. You can't possibly. We've known each other 3 weeks. I knew the first night. His thumb brushed her cheek. When I saw you protecting Makina, working yourself to exhaustion, refusing to break. When I read her letter asking for a father and realized you'd raised a child so full of hope despite having nothing, I knew. Knew what? That I'd found what I'd been looking for my entire life. I just hadn't known I was looking. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm scared. Your world is dangerous. What if something happens to you? What if Makina gets hurt? I've already tripled security. No one touches what's mine, and I'm planning to step back from the more dangerous operations. Let my lieutenants handle it. I have something worth living for now. Me? She whispered. You, Makina. This life we're building. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Say yes, Jasmine. Let me be yours. Let me be hers. Let us be a family. She was crying fully now, but smiling through the tears. You really want this? All of it? The domestic life, the daughter, the responsibilities. I want it all. I want everything with you. Then yes, she laughed, the sound pure joy. Yes, Kyung-soo-han, I'll marry you. We'll be your family. He kissed her then, deep and claiming, pouring every ounce of emotion he'd suppressed for years into that kiss. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. I don't have a ring yet, he admitted. I was planning to take you shopping. I don't need a ring right now, I just need you. They stood on that balcony, wrapped in each other, watching snow fall over their city. Inside, Makena slept safe and warm, dreaming of Christmas morning. Neither of them noticed the small figure watching from the doorway, grinning with satisfaction. Santa had definitely delivered. Christmas Day, 1 year later. The penthouse overflowed with noise and laughter and love. Kyung-soo's mother, who'd flown in from Korea, bickered good-naturedly with Jasmine about the proper way to make kimchi. Makina, now 8 and thriving, showed Min-jae her new taekwondo moves with fierce concentration. Kyung-soo stood apart for a moment, just watching. His wife, caught his eye and smiled, that same soft expression Makina had identified a year ago. His daughter, legally adopted 6 months ago, ran to him with a shriek of delight. Daddy, Daddy, watch this. Daddy. He'd never get tired of hearing that word. Show me, he said, crouching down. She demonstrated her kick, nearly toppling over, but he caught her easily. She giggled, throwing her arms around his neck. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Egi. Egi. Baby. She was learning Korean, picking it up faster than anyone expected. Later, when guests had left and Makina was finally in bed, Kyung-soo found Jasmine in the nursery they'd recently finished. She stood by the crib, one hand on her growing belly, tears on her cheeks. Hey, he said softly, wrapping his arms around her from behind. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's perfect. She turned in his embrace. I was just thinking about last year, about how desperate I was, how scared, how I thought we'd never escape that life. You escaped. You both did. No. She shook her head. We were saved. By a man who read a little girl's letter to Santa and decided to become the father she asked for. Kyung-soo thought about that letter, now framed and hanging in his office, a reminder of what really mattered. She saved me first. Both of you did. We saved each other. He kissed her, soft and sweet, his hand joining hers on her belly where their son grew. Makina would have a brother soon. Their family would expand, would grow, would fill this penthouse with even more life. Merry Christmas, Jasmine. Merry Christmas, Kyung-soo. Outside, snow fell over Chicago. Inside, a former crime lord held his pregnant wife and listened to his daughter sleep peacefully down the hall. He'd been cold for so long, empty for so many years. Now he was warm. Now he was full. Now he was home.